And I'm going to take that martini glass. I've got some Ghirardelli chocolate sauce.
Oh, we're
Hold on.
oh, okay. There we go.
Hi, everybody.
There
And then we'll move it back in a second. We're going to take some Ghirardelli chocolate sauce.
Which,
We're going really, Ghirardelli, let's face it.
You know.
I was looking for the magic shell.
Yeah.
We thought magic shell was the way to go, but then when I got to Kroger last night, there was no magic shell, and Ghirardelli just jumped right off the shelf. Ghirardelli. So we're going to take this martini glass. We're going to get the chocolate started, and we're just going to start to swirl it in there.
Look at that.
Isn't that beautiful? Very,
Look at us.
very
We're
artistic.
fancy.
I know.
Very
Look at
fancy
that.
around here. Look at us.
And then we're going to take our blended up grasshopper, and we're going to pour it right
Yeah,
in.
look at us. And we're even
Look
getting fancy on our
at
camera
us
techniques.
go.
Look at us.
All right.
Moving up in the world.
Now that looks pretty good in itself, right? But it's not over yet. Jordan, can you get out the whipped cream?
Sure.
Not only are we going to have ourselves a grasshopper,
This is fat-free, right?
totally fat-free.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I've been doing really good on counting the carbs and really staying low until I come home and do COVID cooking. So I don't know if you all have that problem as well. We're going to take a nice dollop of fresh homemade whipped cream, and then we're going to crumble an Andes mint and put it right on top. So there's no calories in that whatsoever.
No.
And this is our grasshopper drink for the afternoon. Look at that, everybody.
It looks so good.
This is, I think I had one of these in Poland when I was there. I'm sure they call it something else, but something I can't pronounce because it has a lot of vowels in it. So we're going to, I hope that didn't offend any of our Polish friends at home, but you know it's true. You know it's true, and so do I. So that's our grasshopper drink of the day, and it is super refreshing.
Oh, it's so
It is
good.
super light and super good.
And it's also one of those that, especially when Father Joe makes it, it sneaks up on you a little bit.
Right, because
so, and you think,
we don't
oh.
follow recipes in my house. 4 fingers of booze is always better than 2 in my estimation. So
All right,
there we go.
Cheers.
Cheers. Mmm.
It's so good. I'm
yummy.
I'm nursing one from earlier. So we have our drink.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk something that's
Let's give a little background here.
Right.
Because one of the things that when we were in Poland for World Youth Day, one of the things that we received a lot at the restaurants that we went to, this is a fresh local dish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we talked yesterday,
Right.
it's kind of whatever local fruit
right.
is in season, right?
Absolutely. And so it's interesting because I was doing a little bit of research. So essentially, okay, just to give a paraphrase as to how this conversation went this week. We both looked at each other and were like, okay, well, what do you want to do?
What are we doing?
And essentially we came around to this Polish theme, right? And in my research then for this blueberry soup, which is something that I understand that you guys had the opportunity to have.
Probably every day.
Every day.
Probably every meal.
While in Poland.
Absolutely.
I come to find out that it's truly, like you mentioned, using seasonal fruit. It's like the Polish way of, oh, we have strawberries? Oh, let's put it in a soup.
Let's make it a chilled gazpacho. Yeah?
Essentially, yes. And so it was interesting because, of course, then there's so many different variations, right? So I'm going to be showing you just one way, but we've also, because you know us, we can't stand it. We tried 2 different recipes last night. And so this is the one we prefer, but I'll be sure I'll throw it all to Megan and I'll get you links to the various recipes that I reference. Again, though, keep in mind, as usual, I am not a very good rule follower when it comes to recipes.
No.
So I'm following the general gist. But I still think it turned out nice.
Oh, it was wonderful.
I still think it turned out nice.
We had the 2 different versions were really very different.
They were.
And they must have
They
been regional because the one that you fixed was less blended
Right.
and also had allspice.
It
No,
had cloves.
Clove in it,
Clove and
which
cinnamon.
where we were at in Krakow, and majority of the time we had Krakow, never did it have anything like clove in it at all. It was
Interesting.
very bland. The food was
Interesting.
very bland
Interesting.
in itself, although they're very good cooks because it's carbs every second, right?
You know,
From
let's be
pierogies
real.
and potatoes
You
and
know, let's be
pierogies
real.
and potatoes and dumplings and pierogies
and
potatoes.
you know,
So
and
we had a
carbs
lot of that.
win.
So
They
carbs win every time.
Every time.
And bread. That's one of the other things that we're doing today
Right,
is bread because
right.
this soup was often served with a nice chilled bread and chilled butter.
Wonderful.
Oh
wonderful.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the recipe that I'm using then. So I'm starting out with fresh blueberries. I don't know that y'all can see this, but there's fresh blueberries in here, I promise.
Mhm.
And then there's also brown sugar, and then I'm going to cover this with water. And then I'm going to throw it on the stove for about 10 minutes or so. And basically the idea is that we're trying to begin that process of breaking down the berries. I'm also, in the meantime, chopping up some plums that I got from the Kroger. And we're going to turn this into
Our famous
a...
French market here in Portsmouth.
We're turning it into a compote that we can then put on top. And so
Compote.
I know. Look at us. Look at so.
What
so,
makes compote different from
Then-
a sauce?
I think it's the fact that it's like still chopped up fruit.
Ah,
I
very
think.
good. I think.
I don't know.
I'm
I don't know.
asking. I don't know.
It sounds fancy.
Yeah,
Oh, look!
sure do. I'm
Megan
gonna look it
got
up.
it.
And,
Megan
but,
got
and in the
it.
meantime, I'll have a drink.
Okay, great. I'm gonna put some water on this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm gonna do. And we have to wait for a little bit for the next step. So
Right.
if you're interested in some bread,
Mmm.
I don't know if you're interested.
Yeah, let's step into some bread then, okay?
You're right, Jordan.
Is it?
Was I right?
Compote is basically just a chunky fruit sauce.
There you
Got
go.
me. Look at
Chunky salsa.
Hey, I got it.
Chunky
guys.
fruit salsa.
I got it.
Thank you, Betty Crocker.
Yeah. I got it.
Julia Child right here in our kitchen
You
this
know,
afternoon.
Julia Child.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Yes. Anyway.
So now we're going to try some bread because we want to have soup and you want to have bread because we're doing a chilled soup, another nice, refreshing summer kind of dish, and something that is very filling. You know, after I went home last night and the only thing I could force down was another grasshopper. Right after trying the soups last night, the only thing else I could take in possibly was a grasshopper.
Oh, of course, you sacrificed.
I know, and
yourself,
sacrificed myself
You know.
just for that. But we don't.
Just like Maximilian.
Yeah.
I just work and pray all day. I mean, whatever I've got to do to sacrifice, whatever I have to do. So this bread, and I know probably my mom and dad are watching today. They generally do when they can fit it in when they're taking care of Gus. So a couple weeks ago, my mom gave me a sourdough starter.
He's moving up in the world.
I'm moving up in the
guys.
world,
He's
right? I
moving
have
up.
sourdough starter all over the place.
Right.
Let me see. I think that I might have some. Where did it go to?
Okay, well, and also to give a little
Oh.
more context, folks, so this is the guy who, like, not even 6 months ago, was like, yeah, I don't really do bread.
I don't do
I'm not a
bread.
baker.
I can't
I
bake."
can't bake. And here he is, knocking out all of this stuff for y'all.
Right, exactly.
He's moving up in the
I'm
world.
moving up in the world. I'm actually baking bread and it's coming out like it's supposed to. Yeah, thanks, COVID.
I think.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
you know.
Well, anyway, I got this sourdough starter from my mom, so all I have to do is say thanks, Mom, because I think this will be the last time I have some of the starter for a while. But anyway, because it just goes on forever. Once you start the starter, it never ever ends until you decide to kill it. So anyway, is this... Yeah. So this starter you get, now this is something that my mom got from my sister. My sister got, this starter has been going on and traveling. My sister got it from her extended family up north. It has traveled a long way to get here today. I even took it with me to Michigan when I was on vacation and made fresh bread up there for the gang while we were up fishing, because I had to, because you have to babysit it. You have to babysit your starter. But this starter is basically sugar, milk, and flour. And then after you get a bag of this for the first time in your life, then you have to take it home, you have to babysit it, you have to squish it every day for 10 days. In the middle of it, then you have to add a cup of sugar, a cup of flour, a cup of milk, and then you take it, you squish it for the next 5 days, and then you dump it into a bowl, and then you put more milk and sugar and flour,
So,
and then you separate
I
it.
can feel it now. It was so traumatic.
It was traumatic.
It was so much work.
It was so much work. It was so much work because after I brought the new amount of starter home, I had a problem with my Ziploc baggies. The Ziploc baggies had the little zipper thing across the top. Well, I got home after vacation, put them on my countertop, came downstairs, and realized that all of my baggies were leaking everywhere because they didn't have the seal on it like this one does. So, Mom, thank you, love it. So I was making, I had sourdough all over my kitchen. It was all over my countertop. And then I put all of it into Ziploc containers. I actually had Ziploc containers with snap tops. And, well, anyway, the next day I woke up in the morning, came downstairs, and guess what was countertop again? Because guess